Ellen, the first limited S-rank agent in Zenless Zone Zero, is receiving some much appreciated buffs and enhancements to her kit, and in this video, I will go over what these changes are, how much stronger Ellen becomes, and what new teams she can run. This video was not filmed on the Creator Experience server, and I did not play Ellen with the new enhancements. Information in this video is based on what was already revealed and unofficial sources. Before going over the new enhancements, I would like to take the chance and briefly take another look at what Ellen does, then introduce her new enhancements. Ellen is an S-rank attack ice agent, and the core part of her kit relies on these flash freeze charge points, which allow her basic attacks to deal ice damage. Using Ellen's special dash and holding basic attack will allow her to perform a dash attack that grants 3 flash freeze charge points. Up to 6 points can be accumulated. Pressing basic attack while in the special dash will perform a dash attack dealing less damage and grant a single flash freeze charge point. If Ellen has flash freeze charge points, she can use her ice-infused basic attacks, which deal up to 3 hits. The first 2 hits deal a decent amount of damage. However, her third hit is the most important one, as it deals the most damage. Repeatedly pressing or holding basic attack while performing the third hit will slightly extend the attack's duration. Ellen's X Special will deal ice damage and grant a single flash freeze charge point. If you still have enough energy after using Ellen's X Special, a follow-up can be performed, dealing more damage, granting another flash freeze charge point, and also connecting to her third basic attack. So in most cases, you would want to store enough energy to use the follow-up attack, as it deals more damage, and you would be able to directly use her third basic attack. In terms of enhancements, Ellen is receiving additional basic attacks and also tweaks to her dash attack, core skill, and faction bonus. Icy Blade and Glacial Blade Wave are the 2 new basic attacks. Icy Blade already exists in the game through the Lost Void game mode. This attack will be introduced in Ellen's base kit following the enhancements. Icy Blade will be automatically launched after using Ellen's ice-infused third basic attack, follow-up X Special, dodge counter, or assist follow-up, dealing ice damage and granting the quick charge effect. Icy Blade will also deal increased damage against medium or large enemies. The quick charge effect will reduce the time needed to perform Ellen's dash attack. Ellen's dash attack can sometimes feel a bit clunky and slow, so having this effect automatically granted after performing her basic attacks or X Special will make using her dash attacks to gain flash freeze charge points much smoother. The dash attack is also receiving an enhancement. While Ellen is performing the hold version of the dash attack, she will be invulnerable. This means that Ellen will no longer be interrupted while using her dash attacks, making things, again, a lot smoother. Getting interrupted while trying to gain flash freeze charge points was something that occurred very often to me, so that's a very positive change. Instead of using the Icy Blade attack, if Ellen has at least 2 flash freeze charge points, she can now perform a new attack. Glacial Blade Wave. This attack can be used by pressing basic attack after the third hit of Ellen's ice-infused basic attacks, dash attack, dodge counter, or quick assist, provided that Ellen has enough flash freeze charge points. This attack will connect to the third hit of her basic attacks, which can allow you to skip the first 2 basic attacks. Glacial Blade Wave also deals more damage compared to the first 2 basic attacks. Using these new attacks will allow for more combos. For example, performing Ellen's X Special, then the follow-up X Special will automatically launch Icy Blade. Icy Blade will allow her dash attack to be performed faster. The dash attack also connects to Glacial Blade Wave, which then connects to the third hit of basic attacks. After the third hit of basic attack, if you still have enough flash freeze charge points, you can use Glacial Blade Wave to deal more damage and loop back to the third hit of her basic attacks. Or in case no flash freeze charge points remain, Icy Blade will be automatically launched, granting the quick charge effect for a faster dash attack, which then connects to Glacial Blade Wave and repeat. Aside from the additional basic attacks, Ellen's core skill, which grants a bonus 100% crit damage at max level to her dash attack and ice-infused basic attacks, will now be modified to include Chain Attack, Ultimate, and the 2 new basic attacks. This on its own is a very welcome change. Ellen's Chain Attack and Ultimate contribute to a decent portion of her damage. An additional 100% crit damage to these attacks will naturally boost Ellen's damage even further. And the last change for these buffs is Ellen's Faction bonus, which is being modified to include Stun Agents. Ellen's Faction bonus can grant up to a 30% ice damage bonus. However, it requires either an ice squad member like Sukaku or a squad member from the same faction, like Lycon or Rina. If you were to use a stunner aside from Lycon, like Chingy or Lighter, you would be forced to use Sukaku or Rina as the support. It also goes the other way around. If you wanted to use a support other than Sukaku or Rina, then you would be forced to use Lycon as your stunner. You could ignore this faction bonus, but that will cause you to lose up to a 30% ice damage bonus. With this change extending the squad member criteria to a stunner, you could now run other stunners and supports without losing out on the ice damage bonus. This can allow you to use some of the newer stunners and supports, like Trigger, Lighter, or Astra. With these new team comps, we might also see Ellen's best team comp change toward a stronger team. So how much stronger is Ellen now? To find out, I just used a simple Ellen rotation while the enemy is stunned, which goes through her Chain Attack, Ultimate, X specials, then spams her basic attacks until the stun window ends. This rotation is of course not fully indicative of actual performance, and is only meant to showcase how these new basic attacks and enhancements improve Ellen's damage in a simple rotation with the same team. With that in mind, I was able to observe a 21% improvement in damage while the enemy is stunned. The core skill crit damage increase being extended to other attacks contributes a lot to this, but also the new basic attacks that deal more damage. And I think that in actual combat, if these new skills are being made use of, it would be pretty safe to suggest a 10 to 20% improvement in damage, not to mention how much smoother playing her would be. With the new buffs, Ellen will probably be on par with other attack agents such as Silver Soldier Anby, and it should make using her much more viable than before, even with the other ice attack agents. And if you're coming back to Ellen and wondering how the new W engines would perform on her, you can pause and take a look at this W engine ranking here. With the tweaks to Ellen's faction bonus, allowing stun agents to trigger the effects, her best team, which previously would usually include Lycon and Sukaku, can now be changed. You could now swap out either unit while keeping Ellen's faction bonus active, as long as you have a stunner. In terms of support, Sukaku is already pretty strong as she buffs attack and ice damage bonus, with both buffs lasting for a decent duration, especially with her M1. She can also shred ice resistance with her M4. Astra is an S-rank support who provides a slightly stronger attack buff, up to a 20% damage bonus, and a 25% crit damage bonus. The slightly stronger attack buff and crit damage increase make Astra just a bit stronger in terms of buffs. Keep in mind that this calculation only reflects how much different characters buff Ellen's damage during a stun window, so bonus effects like Astra's Quick Assist are not taken into consideration here. Generally, Astra provides slightly stronger buffs, and is also much easier to play, as you really only need to use Astra's special to gain the buffs. In terms of stunners, again, do keep in mind that this calculation is made while the enemy is stunned. How fast an agent can stun the enemy, and the buffs they provide outside of the stun window are not factored in. Lycon is still a pretty strong stunner, as he increases the stun multiplier and shreds ice resistance, not to mention that he can also help build up the ice attribute anomaly. Chingy is another solid option, and can now be used alongside Astra or other supports, without losing out on Ellen's faction bonus. Trigger should also be a very solid option. I didn't include her in this calculation, since Trigger provides fewer buffs during the stun window, and the lower damage would be largely misleading. However, that isn't what Trigger specializes in. Trigger allows your damage dealer to stay on field, instead of switching to your stunner. For that reason, and also due to Trigger's unconditional stun damage multiplier, I think she will be a pretty decent stunner to use alongside Ellen. Lighter, a stunner who specializes in ice and fire teams, is going to be one of the strongest, if not the strongest, to pair alongside Ellen. Lighter buffs ice damage, reduces ice resistance, and extends stun duration. Ellen, Lighter, and Astra will probably end up being Ellen's best team in terms of damage. This team is not something that the pre-buff Ellen could access without any drawbacks. Overall, Ellen with her new buffs and enhancements should again be a viable and strong damage dealer to use. These changes weren't just about increasing her multipliers, but also adding new attacks and making her smoother and easier to play. Pretty positive changes in my opinion, and it sets a precedent that older characters may also receive enhancements to make them stronger as different game modes become more challenging. Thank you for making it till the end, and thanks for watching.